Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining Redington virtual sessions. Today's speaker is Mr. Walid for the session of Cloud Enterprise Webinar Solutions. For any questions during the session, please add them in the Q&A tab. They will be answered towards the end of the session. Mr. Walid, over to you, please. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rakesh. Good morning, everyone. Can you just confirm if you can hear me clearly?
Yes, Walid, we can see your screen.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Subi. So, good morning, everyone. My name is Walid Chhata. I'm a channel system engineer at Nutanix. I have been there at Nutanix for the last 3 years and a half. And today, inshallah, I'll be your host. And together we'll be seeing how Nutanix can help you build your enterprise cloud platform with what Nutanix offerings and its product portfolio. So what we usually see in nowadays modern IT data centers and infrastructure from architectural perspective, especially the architectures that are depending still on the three-tier architecture. This is a term that I will be referring a lot to today in today's presentation. And when I say three-tier architecture, I mean with it your server tier, your SAN tier, and your storage tier. The same architecture that we have been running for the last maybe more than 20 years. We have been following this architecture, and later on we integrated on top of it the virtualization, yet it's still referred to as the three-tier architecture. The problem with this type of architecture is that in some cases it might lead to some sort of challenging challenges in the IT and the daily operations, especially when it comes to complexity associated with the design. You have multiple siloed infrastructure. You have every tier is managed separately. No single pane of glass for the whole holistic management view of the complete data center operation. It's multiple POs, multiple support contracts with multiple vendors, different refresh cycles. When it comes to upgrading to firmware, assume for example you are running virtualization with vSphere and VMware releases a new hypervisor. Because of the dependencies between the many components of the data center, you cannot go and say, I will upgrade my hypervisor immediately once it is released. You have to ensure that there is an interoperability with the other remaining components. So many moving parts, too complex to manage, multiple silos, and all of that makes IT a little bit unable to respond quickly to the business needs. In today's world, business requirements should be attained as soon as fast as you can. IT can be competitive, like give your entity a competitive edge over competitors if it was adopting an agile, simple, and simplified model. For such reasons that I have just discussed, mainly associated with complexity and how fast you can respond to business needs, what we usually refer to the go-to-market time, some customers, and we have spotted this pattern, and this pattern is growing over time. Some customers have started adopting or switching to public clouds. It's not a secret. Public clouds like AWS, Azure, GCP, and others offers you a very simple and simplified GUI, one management console, to manage all of your resources. You are not really dragged into the details of the underlying infrastructure. It's very simple. You are only focused toward your applications and services, making the virtualization and all of the underlying infrastructure totally invisible to you. It's not really important for you to focus on the underlying infrastructure and technologies, but it's better to focus on technologies. For that reason, and because of such pattern, we at Nutanix decided to bring this cloud-like experience on-prem. We wanted to offer the customer the same experience that they get on AWS or Azure or any public cloud provider, but with the full control and compliance on-prem. And we started that 11 years ago, and we decided to take everything into software approach where the solution will be compatible to run on many hardware platform, and at the end of the day, it's a pure data center software stack, offering you the full complete data center experience where everything is in software, everything is highly available with no single points of failure, self-healing systems that automatically remediate and recover from failure with zero touch from and engagement from your admins, etc., etc. Again, the same experience of cloud-like interaction, but on-prem. And the most important thing, we need a sort of holistic view where we can manage all of these data center tiers from one single console. And this is what we offer today to our customers. We offer to the customers a complete data center stack where to be able to deploy this stack, the foundation layer where everything starts is dependent and built on top of your HCI infrastructure, your hyper-converged infrastructure. We cannot give you the agility and simplicity and centralized management if you are still dependent on the three-tier architecture. We had to re-platform the IT infrastructure and architecture with HCI. And this is what we started with back in 2009 when we first started this. And we thought that public cloud providers, they don't rely on three-tier architecture. Instead, they rely more on Hadoop-like architecture where everything is distributed compute, distributed storage. We thought that why don't we bring the same experience to the enterprise customers and to bring it inside the data centers of the customers. And we invented the concept of hyper-converged infrastructure. We were the first vendor to derive this technology. And if you can check now the IT landscape, every single other vendor either developed an equivalent product or acquired a startup that's more doing something like us. So we can see now it's like the new norm of IT infrastructure is becoming the HCI. If you are still not familiar with the HCI concept, I will be covering that in the coming slides. However, while the other HCI solutions in the market stopped there, we didn't want to offer only customer just an HCI. We wanted to build on top of this HCI, consolidate more data services, offer integrated business continuity, engage our solution with automation and orchestration capabilities that let you achieve the dream of the private cloud and the 100% autonomous IT operations on top of that solution. And with that whole stack that I will be explaining in more details in the coming slides, you would be able to run any workload, any application on top of this stack. Let me elaborate more on the details. So, as I mentioned, your bottom tier, your foundation layer is your HCI. And for HCI to run, so we are the HCI vendor in the market that don't lock the customer for a specific hardware. Any other solution out there will force you to work with a specific hypervisor and with a specific hardware vendor, which is not the case with Nutanix. Nutanix, you can get the hardware from us, which is mainly coming from Supermicro, or we have a bunch of OEM solutions that are certified to run the Nutanix software stack on top. We have OEM relationships with HP, Lenovo, Fujitsu, and Dell. Cisco's there on the list. However, it's not a full OEM vendor. There is no mutual agreement between us and vendor, just like the other vendors that I just mentioned. But we have certified our solution on top of some Cisco B series and C series servers. So at the end of the day, it's the customer choice. You prefer on your data center is certified on HP servers, not a problem for us. You can get Nutanix on top of HP. You have good relationship with Lenovo or Fujitsu, for example, and you can secure better discounts with them, or you're happy with the relationship or with their support, not a problem. You can get Nutanix solution from them as well, etc., etc. So this is the first point to discuss here, the freedom of choice. You are free to choose however or which hardware vendor you want to run the Nutanix stack on top. The good news is, regardless which hardware platform you will select, it is the same end user experience. There is no way I'm going to tell you that this feature works on Lenovo, but it doesn't work on Fujitsu or HPE. This is not the case, because Nutanix solution is 100% based on software. So it is all of the features that I'm going to discuss in the coming slides will work regardless what was there on the hardware tier. On top of that, you use this hardware to modernize your infrastructure with HCI and run Nutanix software. And the name of the software I am referring to it here is what's highlighted on the slide on the blue bottom layer as AOS. AOS is short for Acropolis operating system. Acropolis is Nutanix software. It's our bread and butter. Every single Nutanix server out there is running Acropolis, and I will elaborate more about each one of these products on top. So we modernize your infrastructure. We help you to build a secure virtual environment on top. We will consolidate more data services. We will automate the IT operation, giving you self-service portal access. And at the same time, we are not going to risk any sort of data availability. We will ensure that you have the enough business continuity and data protection capabilities, as I will be mentioning later. The good thing is that this stack is usable on-prem. However, we can integrate with your public cloud choice, whether you want to integrate with AWS or Azure or GCP. This stack is expandable and able to be integrated with one of those three choices. So again, we respect the customer choice on hardware. We respect the customer choice on if he will be looking for a hybrid model, which public cloud to integrate with. And the third, freedom free choice by the customer, which hypervisor you want to run on your stack. And I will explain that, what I mean with that, in more details in the coming slides. This stack gives you a unified platform that will make seamless IT operation regardless where is your application, on-prem or in the cloud, on whatever hardware vendor. And the good thing, all of that is managed from one single console. So the whole data center operations and applications managed at or through one console, which is highlighted, by the way, on this slide as Prism. Beside AOS, beside Acropolis, Prism is our native integrated management console that I will be showing you some screenshots of it later on today. So there are so many products in our portfolio. We prefer to classify them into three main categories. Nutanix core products, those are the fundamental, foundational products that you have to first rely on them. Then you can build on top of them with the essential products, followed by the enterprise products. When I say core, essentials, and enterprise, I don't really mean with it licenses. This is not a license entitlement. This is just more of which product fits into which category. So we have core products, essential products, and enterprise products. Today we will be covering these products in our webinar. So let's start. We cannot go to essential enterprise if we don't have solid understanding of the underlying core products. So let's start with Nutanix core. So I believe we have already started discussing some of the details, and we mentioned Acropolis. This is our HCI software running on top of your hardware platform of choice, as I mentioned, either Nutanix or one of the other OEM certified vendors. Nutanix Acropolis is running inside a virtual machine, and for this virtual machine to run, you need to be running a virtualization platform. The virtualization platform on Nutanix, you can either pick from ESXi or Hyper-V on top of Nutanix, or our native hypervisor, which is called AHV. So whatever hypervisor you will be running on top of Nutanix, in all of the cases you are running Acropolis. Acropolis, this is our software that we sell and we sell the license for. This is managed from our one-click HCI management console known as Prism. Prism is not an extra software to install. Like when you have a vSphere cluster, you need, after installing ESXi, you need to still install vCenter Server in order to create a cluster and manage this cluster and the cluster operation. This is not the case with Nutanix. Once you create a Nutanix sector, you see Nutanix cluster and you link for the cluster Nutanix code, and then it comes up. Prism, when the cluster comes up, Prism is already running there. It's not extra VM or software to bring. It's actually integrated service runs Acropolis. So Prism is actually, and we will see screenshots of Prism later on today, Prism HTML5 based interface that is used to manage the whole stack. What type of management can be covered by Prism? So Prism mainly is used for managing your HCI stack, your compute, your servers, and your storage, creating and provisioning your storage resources and data protection, etc., etc. What about, so I mean the physical infrastructure. What about my virtual infrastructure, my VMs? I'll stop here for a second. If you will choose, for example, to deploy ESXi on top of Nutanix, you will need to rely on two management consoles. Prism to manage your physical infrastructure, and vCenter Server to manage your virtual infrastructure. However, and by the way, we do integrate between Prism and vCenter Server. However, if you decided to choose Nutanix AHV, the same management console that is used to manage your physical infrastructure, I mean with it Prism, would be the same interface to manage the complete virtualization stack. So imagine your physical and virtual stack, all of them managed through one native integrated console. Okay, so this is one of the added values if you want to run HV compared to the others. Again, it's not a must, it's a choice. But part of my job as a trusted advisor to tell you what can be the added value in terms of IT operation and simplifying the IT operation, rather than being dispersed or divided between two different management consoles, vCenter and Prism. Imagine that everything can be placed in one single place. So this will be the first added value for you from operations perspective if you decide to choose HV on top of ESXi. So in case of you are not still yet familiar with HCI, let me spend a couple of minutes here to show you what do I mean with an HCI. On the left-hand side, you can see the traditional three-tier architecture that I already earlier referred to in my presentation. So we have three tiers known as compute, then the fiber channel switches, which is known as SAN, then the storage controllers, which are my storage arrays. And on top of that, definitely have your virtualization to run your virtualized applications. So let me ask you a question. On your storage controller, when you buy a certain sandbox storage array, usually the storage arrays comes with something on board called storage processors or storage controllers. SP, in some vendors they call it SP, storage processor. Some vendors they call it SC, storage controllers. And in most of the cases, there are actually two storage controllers or 2 storage processors per array. They usually either work as active or active. It depends from a vendor to another. But at the end of the day, they to either to load balance or to distribute the operation and for high availability. And every storage box is limited to a certain maximum number of disks and maximum number of terabytes that it can accommodate. When you reach this maximum and you want to scale, the only other way to scale is to bring in another storage box with 2 new storage processors and new set of disk shelves and new disks. But the problem is some of your LANs are on the old system. Other LANs are on another system. The new system, you need to provide for it the zoning configuration and all of the other configuration that you might be aware of happening on your SAN environment. The new storage environment comes with a new management console. It's a new management silo. It's okay, but it's not the best from operation point of view from operations perspective. So we decided back in 2009 that we need to redesign the way IT is being deployed, and we wanted to simplify this infrastructure and make the IT very agile and much way simpler. How was that possible? We decided back then to eliminate completely all of my storage controllers and disks and all of the fiber channel switches. So we eliminated SAN and we eliminated the storage arrays, and we replaced that with a group of what we called it Nutanix nodes. A server equipped with some local drives. How many drives? Well, it depends on the model. Some models start from 3 drives. We have models that can accommodate up to 24 drives. So it depends on the use case and the sizing for the opportunity. And this is part of my job and my colleague's job to pick the right hardware for you, for the use case and for the right opportunity. Because some nodes can be compute intense, some nodes can be storage intense, some nodes are balanced nodes. So we have a huge variety of options to choose there. But when you find me in the slide, so they saying or referring to Nutanix node, a server equipped with a certain number of local or direct attached drives. They can all be all flash, they can be hybrid, they can be NVMe. There are huge number of options to choose from. And these nodes, every single node, every single server is running Nutanix software on top of it. This software with these nodes will let them operate in the cluster and run on top of that your virtualization and your applications. For this cluster operation to work, these nodes needs to communicate with each other in order to be able to share the resources altogether. And this happens between the nodes through the top of rack switch or switches if we are seeking high availability and no single points of failure. So you have a bunch of Nutanix nodes running a special Nutanix software on top of it, and these nodes are interconnected via the top of rack switch. This is the replacement for what we have on the left-hand side. So if we compare the density of the data center and how much savings we can bring on table, savings in terms of floor space, because you can consolidate much more or many racks into much less space, savings on cooling, savings on power requirements, all of those OPEX related costs. You cannot imagine how much savings this simplified model can bring on the table. And in addition to that, and on top of that, not only costs associated with running costs, but even costs associated with operation, simplified operation and less risks and data loss possibilities, as I will be highlighting later in my presentation about the availability options. The good thing is that we have replaced what's on the left with what's on the right. We have replaced multiple management consoles and silos on the left-hand side with one single console that manages the whole HCI stack on the right-hand side. So if we need to have a deeper look, or let's look under the hood, what's shown right now on the slide is that what we used to have in the old days, that you had your storage box equipped with the storage controllers, two storage controllers, controller 1 and controller 2, and that's it. You want to scale beyond that, you bring another box which will bring two new storage controllers with a new management IP, as I mentioned earlier in the previous slide. What did we do in Nutanix? We said that why don't we take the functions that are being executed by the storage controller in hardware and do it in software. And this, what we have done, we have replaced the storage controller with a special VM running on top of every Nutanix node. And this VM, as you can see from this slide, is named and known as CVM, short for Controller Virtual Machine. The good thing is that every single Nutanix node runs a CVM. So if you are getting from Nutanix a 10 node cluster, this means that you have 10 CVMs. You add the 11th node, the 11th node will come with the new CVM. But regardless how many nodes, or in other words, how many CVMs exist in your cluster, all of those are managed through one single IP, one single console. This is not the old model that we were used to when it comes to scaling my storage and keep on adding multiple silos. So you start today with a 4-node cluster, you have one management interface. You added 3 more nodes in the future, so you became with 7-node cluster, still one management interface with the same management IP. And this is, again, an added benefit from operation perspective. So what will the CVMs do? As you can see, every node has a bunch of local drives. They can be, as I mentioned, NVMe, they can be all flash, they can be flash and rotating disks, I mean hybrid nodes, etc., etc. Every CVM will be SCSI attached to its local drives. So every CVM will be sharing with the other CVMs what local resources I have, so that it can be accessible and used by other components in the cluster. And by that, we would be able to aggregate all of the disks on this cluster as a single big storage pool, where the storage pool has all of the hard disks of all of the nodes in the cluster participating in. These CVMs, as I mentioned in the previous slide, are interconnected via the top of rack switch and network. And we should ensure that we have a minimum of 20 gig per second connection, 2 times 10 gig per second connection per node. This is the best practice for Nutanix. Are we a chatty solution? Not that. We don't see and spot patterns at customer of high network utilization for the CVM to CVM traffic. This is maybe below 2 to 3% maximum of this bandwidth. And with that, I'll be able to create a cluster and would be able to run my virtual machines on top of this cluster. To start with a Nutanix cluster, you can start small with a minimum of 3 nodes to spin up a Nutanix cluster. Then you can scale up or scale out without limits and keep on adding nodes. You can just keep on adding 1 node at a time or many nodes, but the minimal scale of addition would be, or capacity or scaling would be, to just can purchase 1 node at a time and keep on adding. So it's more of like pay as you grow model. In the old days of traditional infrastructure, you used to size for your data for the coming 5 years. Okay, make sure my storage array with the disk shelves is ready for my expansion over the next 5 years, because I'm worried if we start to growing, will I need to buy a new storage or a bigger storage box or a second storage box or not? So from day 0, you try to plan ahead of time and plan maybe 3 years or 5 years in advance. You don't need to do this with Nutanix, because in Nutanix, you pay for what you are using right now. You want to scale, we don't have an issue. After 1 year, you have a new requirement or your capacity has increased. It's not an issue at all. You can keep on adding more nodes in the future. We'll try to keep your data local for maximum performance, and we give you a lot of flexibility options when it comes to mixing node times. And we are the only HCI vendor capable of doing so. What do I mean of that? Let's speak about the flexibility of mixing nodes in the cluster. We are the only solution out there in the HCI market that's capable of mixing all flash nodes with hybrid nodes. Not all applications require all flash. Yes, there are some workloads, like maybe mission critical or OLTP databases, for example, that you have huge traffic of transactions. This is not a question. Definitely, I would be looking for an all flash for such type of workloads. But there are other suboptimal workloads that they don't need the same type of performance or KPI metrics like those mission critical applications. And for those, hybrid nodes is more than a good fit, with the proper tiering being sized properly to ensure that you have the best performance and at the same time less cost. But other solutions in the market, they will try to lock you towards all flash. Why? For some deficiencies in their architecture that I will highlight later on. They cannot do compression and deduplication and all of those storage efficiency feature on a hybrid node. They have to only do it on all flash. Their architecture is not unified. This like Nutanix. In Nutanix, we will see later, deduplication, compression, any sort of feature is available on all flash, on hybrid, or whatever platform you have. So because they have a drawback in their hybrid architecture, they will try to refrain away from it. And they will try to offer you an all flash solution, even if the workload does not need that. The problem is, if you started with them as all flash, you are locked in and you have to scale later on only as all flash. There is no other way. They cannot mix. They try to deviate from hybrid, which is not the case with Nutanix. Let's say you have an opportunity now for Nutanix, maybe, and we will do the assessment together and we'll figure out that we need to start with a 3-node all flash. Not a problem. Next year, you came back to me and said that, Walid, we have a new workload. We need to migrate some other workloads on top of Nutanix, or we have a new web campaign that we will be creating a bunch of web servers on top of Nutanix as well, but we don't have the required resources. We need to scale. We do the exercise together and we figure out that you can add 1 or 2 more extra nodes. And guess what? They don't need to be all flash. They are hybrid. Can I mix the hybrid with the all flash? Yes, not a problem at all at Nutanix. Can I still use the storage efficiency feature techniques of compression, deduplication with such mixed cluster between all flash and hybrid? Absolutely possible. So there is no other solution out there in the market capable of giving you such options. Not that only. If you decided not to go with our hypervisor for whatever reason, okay, maybe you still have a valid vSphere license and you decided to go with Nutanix, you're happy with the solution, and you decided to bring your vSphere license to the ESXi on top of Nutanix. Cool. And you are running, let's say, for example, a 3-node vSphere cluster on top of the 3-node Nutanix cluster. Later on, maybe after a year or so, still your license is valid, and you came back to me saying, Walid, I'm very happy with the Nutanix cluster and vSphere on top. However, my compute and CPU utilization is perfect. My RAM utilization is still at 60–70%, also perfect. But I have a big challenge. My challenge now is that I'm running out of storage. We are keeping more snapshots, or the user capacity requirement has changed, and I'm running out of storage. I'm now at like 90% utilization. How can you help me, Walid? If you decided to go with Hyper-V or vSphere, for example, I can let you do the following. Give you a bunch of other nodes that we run them as storage-only nodes. We call them storage-only nodes. What do I mean by storage-only nodes? When I add them, they will be added with our own hypervisor, which is AHV. and they will be added only to expand your storage pool that's highlighted there in blue, without being presented as a hypervisor, which means your 3-node vSphere cluster on top of 3-node Nutanix cluster, if you added 2 more Nutanix storage only nodes, you are still running a 3-node vSphere cluster, but on top now of a 5-node Nutanix cluster. And you were able to scale your storage without the need to pay for an extra license for the new nodes. This, like other competitors out there in the market, that they don't have such concept, and when you scale up, you have to scale up by compute and storage all the time. So every extra node that you add, you have to increase the compute and the storage, and not that only, you have to pay for the hypervisor. So Nutanix has a huge wide options of mixing ideas that all of them are tailored or can be tailored in terms and favor of the customer. How can I help you achieve your challenge and solve your pain points at the same time offer you the best economic solution? As I mentioned, to spin up a new Nutanix cluster, you need to start by 3 nodes. However, we have something special for robos, remote sites and branch offices. It doesn't make any sense for the customer to have in every branch. Imagine you have 10 branches for your company, and every branch has just a small print server and a small file server, 2 or 3 VMs. Imagine that I'm telling you, okay, for every branch you need a cluster, and the cluster requires a minimum of 3 nodes. This doesn't make any sense. You will not get 3 servers to run only 3 VMs. It doesn't make any sense at all. For that specific use case, we came up 2 years ago with the idea of robo solution, remote office branch office solution, which is made of a single node cluster or a dual node cluster, a cluster made of 1 node or a cluster made of 2 nodes, to make it more economic and more reasonable for the customer. And we even give for such solutions the ability to pay the license per VM. So you get the same hardware, but maybe you run 2 VMs, so you pay for 2 VM license. But for the another branch that you have 4 or 5 VMs, you get the same infrastructure, same hardware, but you pay for the license for that extra branch. So the license is more flexible for the robos. It's more based on the number of VMs, and it can start with a single node or a dual node cluster. The good point is that we can leverage the native Nutanix data protection and replication capabilities and replicate all of the branches to your main site. And guess what? You can manage all of those branches with all of the IT services in them, centralized from a single management console at your main site. And you can even manage the software upgrades for all of your branches from that single console. It's a very, 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 very great option for customers that are running based on lots of branches, and they are looking out for a sort of a centralized, unified solution across the main site and all of the branches. Nutanix software is equipped with enterprise-graded storage and security features. So all of the features that you are looking out for, that you are used to it on your storage array, you would find them out there in the Nutanix solution, like snapshots, cloning, native data tiering between hot tier to cold tier and vice versa, compression, deduplication, erasure coding, native data protection and replication with wide options to choose from between asynchronous, synchronous, and even a Nutanix patent technology called near synchronous replication. All of those features, we do have it within our platform. And as I mentioned, all of that is managed with one management console known as Prism. This is a screenshot of Prism. Prism, guys, is an HTML-based interface. As I mentioned, it's not an extra software to install. It's you just direct your browser towards the cluster IP, and here you go, you are interfacing with Prism. Prism is very simple, easy to use, no dependencies on Java or Flash or a specific plugin needed to be installed to manage properly. So you get the same end user experience if you are connecting from your computer, any browser, or from your phone or your tablet. It's the same experience. You can manage the full stack from Prism. Okay. So since we discussed Acropolis and our HCI and Prism, now the last product that we have on the list for our core products is our own hypervisor. Again, I'm repeating my point. It's not a must that you run HV. It's one of the options for your virtualization stack on top of Nutanix. However, as I mentioned, I would tell you what will be the added values for you if you run Nutanix HV. So we mentioned one already. HV is going to offer you less operational complexity because of the integrated management. As we mentioned, and as I showed you, the Prism from the previous slide, it's not only managing your physical resources, but you manage your virtual machine as well from there, if you will go with AHV. So less management console, integrated, simpler operation. This is added point number one. Added value number two for the customer will be that there is no license for AHV. It comes with no extra cost. What do I mean by that? If you will decide to purchase Nutanix and on top of it vSphere, you need to pay for Nutanix Acropolis license, for Nutanix software license, and for vSphere license on top of that. However, if you will go with Nutanix and on top of it HV, you already pay for Nutanix Acropolis license and that's it. HV is bundled with Acropolis. There is no separate license for AHV, so there is no virtualization license renewals that you need to worry about. It's native, running, comes at no extra cost. And the last added value for HV compared to the other hypervisor, that it comes with native integrated micro-segmentation capability. If you are not familiar with the term micro-segmentation, it's the ability for controlling your east-west traffic. How can I secure the traffic between my virtual machine? It's very important. It's a very hot topic out there in the market. Solutions out there in the market are either agent-based that you install on every single VM, which is costly and expensive, or hypervisor-specific solutions like the one offered by VMware called NSX. In Nutanix, we offer the same functionality with HV with an extra component I will be covering soon in my slide deck called Flow. But from operational point of view, Flow is available at one click to enable Flow, and that's it. Just like the other solutions that can be complicated to enable and manage. And I would summarize that Nutanix is very innovative and keeps on adding more features with more Acropolis releases and keeps on updating the portfolio. Most of the time, any new product that we announce, the first support nowadays is for HV. Then we start looking for enabling or extending this functionality to other hypervisors. So imagine you are running now in Nutanix AOS, Acropolis software version with HV. Nutanix announcing new Acropolis with new set of features. You are the first to use them. But if you're running other hypervisor, you might need to wait for the release after in order to expand this functionality into other hypervisors. Okay, so there are so many great values about HV from the end user experience. It's like a better end user experience if you will be able to run HV with your virtualization stack on top. By that being said, I believe we spent a good amount of time to explain the Nutanix Enterprise core products. However, we should not stop there. Now we have a very agile, simple infrastructure. We can use this infrastructure to complement it with some extra pieces of software and functions that will help you build on top of this HCI a true enterprise private cloud. And I'm sure the term of private cloud is not something new. You have been hearing this term so many times, and many people or vendors were pitching in the idea of private cloud, but might not be something that you have seen as easy to achieve. I need to transform my IT to be like AWS portal. Services pre-built, you click, deploy, everything is streamlined and automated with nearly zero touch from your site. It's not a new technology, it's out there in the market, but the solutions out there is not something easy that you can do yourself. Let's see how with the Nutanix Extra Enterprise Essentials products, I can help you build this enterprise private cloud and make this dream become more of a reality. So we are going to cover in this section mainly 4 products: Files, Flow, Calm, and Prism Pro, as highlighted in the mid section here in the Nutanix Essential section. So let's start. So we will see products that will help you consolidate file storage and bring more data services on top of the cluster. We will see products, and this is the most important one in this tier, products that automate your applications and streamline your IT workflows so that you are able to build a self-service portal and offer it to the IT users to consume the resources themselves rather than the manual provisioning way. We will see resources that can, or tools that help you to manage your IT in a very smart and more efficient way. And lastly, we're speaking about automation and being agile and being able to respond quickly to business needs. This should not be compromising my security, and how can I secure my applications? So how can I scale and be agile and automate, and at the same time being able to secure and tighten the security of my back-end infrastructure? So let's start one by one. Let's start with the first one, which is mainly for file services. If you still remember my words when I started this conversation, that we re-platformed IT infrastructure and we were able to re-platform the SAN architecture into HCI. So I believe with that we were able to get rid of the SAN and the storage boxes. However, still sitting there in your data center, the NAS box for your network attached storage, for your shares, for your file servers, your CIFS, your SMB or NFS shares or exports for your IT users. If you do remember, there was an old term known in the market as unified storage, where in the very old days, there was something called sandbox and NAS box, 2 separate boxes. Then they came up with this term called unified storage, saying that why don't we bring both functions to be in the same box with one management console and simplify the operation? And the term evolved and it became a trend, and almost every single storage vendor out there have something like this, a unified storage array. Since we have eliminated SAN, we thought in the same way, why don't I bring on top of the Nutanix platform the NAS functionality as well and eliminate completely the NAS silo? And we started that almost 5 years ago, and we came up with our product known now as Nutanix Files, a software-defined file server that runs on top of your Nutanix cluster. And guess what, guys? It's managed from Prism. So imagine now from Prism that you manage your physical infrastructure, you manage your VMs and the virtual infrastructure. You are able now to provision and create and control quotas for your file level shares for Active Directory users and groups. It's a very scalable solution that have plenty of scale up and or scale out options. That's even equipped with machine learning smartness that will give you recommendations based on the performance metrics that, okay, for this file server, based on the current demand and current of concurrent users, it's recommended for this file server to scale up the resources or to scale out and add more resources to this file server. This is natively running from within Prism. So scalable, software-based file server, full of features, rich ecosystem, and integrated management. Thus, you get the same one-click experience in the simplified fashion of Nutanix on top or from within Prism. We do support SMB 2.0, 2.1, 3.0, and we do support as well NFS version 3.0 and version 4.0. We do support as well what we call it a concurrent access to the share or multi-protocol access, where you have the same share accessible by Windows and Linux at the same time for the environment that have mixed client types. This deployment of our software-defined file server is available inside Prism, and in less than 10 to 15 minutes, your file server can be up and running. It's a very scalable solution. It scales up to petabytes of scale. You can grow and shrink the capacity on demand. And since it's on top of Nutanix, you can leverage the Nutanix storage features in terms of compression, in terms of snapshots, cloning, native data protection and replication to your DR. Imagine that you can have your DR functionality for your file server. All of that natively running from within Prism. Not that only, but we have announced last year a very important piece of art that was added to our file server capabilities, which is called File Analytics, as shown on the screen. It's a native functionality for the file server, giving you firstly some data about your data, insights about your file server consumption, how much the capacity is growing over time, who are the top users, who are the top shares or files, what's the distribution of file by size, what's the distribution of files by type, how many PPTs, how many audio, PDFs, spreadsheets, etc., etc. This is very valuable, insightful information about your data and how it is trending over time. In addition to this, and this is in my opinion the most important value here, the ability to configure audit trails so that you are able to track your Active Directory users and groups, which user opened which file or created which file or copied or deleted which file at what time. You can keep the trace up to the last year. So imagine in one click and with few search criteria, you can search and fetch for the file level activities. You can search either by file name. So show me over the past year, this file, which user accessed it and deleted or renamed or modified any of this file. Or you can search by Active Directory user. Show me the activities executed by that user. It doesn't stop here even. You can configure your anomalies that you get alerts. For example, send me an email notification when you find a specific Active Directory user deleting more than 30 files in less than 5 minutes. Give me an alert. So you can track the abnormal activities associated with the audit or with the file activity done by your Active Directory users. The good thing, guys, when we announced, and imagine this, imagine that you were a customer running Nutanix Files. Before we released File Analytics, you were running Nutanix software version for this file server, and you were running it licensed, everything is perfect. Now we announced the new feature called File Analytics with just a software upgrade, and with the same license entitlement, you get all of those features for free because it is already part of Files. And this is the innovation I'm speaking about of Nutanix. Your end user experience of what you will purchase. If you purchase on a certain date, you get a certain functionality. The functionality will not stop here with that license level. With the more features and releases that we release, and by just a software upgrade, and by the way, in our software upgrade, it's a non-destructive upgrade with zero downtime, you get a bunch of new features and functionality with the same license entitlement. This is really helpful. Many customers are appreciating this analytics. It's a true differentiator for this solution compared to old monster NAS vendors out there in the market that has been there for many years. Because not all NAS solutions have such functionality, and usually they complement that with third-party solutions. It's native, running in Nutanix, everything in software, everything is running from the same console, and don't forget ever please about that. The next product that you can use to or help you build this private cloud experience, not even private, can be hybrid cloud experience, with Calm. Calm is our own automation and orchestration tool. Calm is short for Cloud Application Lifecycle Management. Calm will let you build a self-service portal where services are published based on your user identity. You log into the SSP, self-service portal, based on your identity. I will assign a specific services for you with specific quotas that you can consume. You are allowed to deploy a new MariaDB. You are allowed to deploy a new web application, a Linux desktop or a Windows desktop with a specific applications running on top. Some predefined catalog you will design and publish through this self-service portal. We have in Calm native marketplace that is equipped with some templates for well-known application. However, and we recommend the customer to do that, to build your own application template. Templates in Calm are referred to as blueprints. And I need to be honest with you, maybe designing a customized blueprint would be taking some considerable amount of time, because when you design a blueprint, you need to define for this application how many VMs, what images to be installed, what packages to be installed on this application, what are the specs and the configuration and the network connectivity, and not that even, the security rules that you want to configure for this application. Everything that is defined within the application, we capture it and design it on something called a blueprint. And once the blueprint is ready, you push this blueprint to the self-service portal. Your application template is ready in the self-service portal. When the IT user logs in, he clicks on that template or this blueprint, and it will be automatically deployed with everything that you have already highlighted there. Also, why I mentioned it's not only a private cloud dream, it also helps you to integrate with your public cloud. You build an application blueprint, and at the deployment time, you can give the optionally, you can give the IT user the option, where would you like to deploy the application? Would you like it to deploy it on-prem inside your private cloud, or for this specific application, would you like to deploy it on your AWS account, or your Azure account, or your GCP, Google Cloud Platform account? This is how you can unify your operations and streamline your operation and IT workflows, either across your private cloud or even extended beyond that to your public cloud. As we said, we are streamlining everything. We are making everything consolidated, easier to consume and manage, simple and agile. However, we don't want to neglect or forget about security. Security is a very important topic. Think about it. If I ask you a question, do you think it's important to secure the traffic flowing between a virtual machine and another virtual machine within your data center? Yes or no? Your answer, guys, should be yes. It's a very important topic nowadays, because if you listen to the pitch of any security vendor, they used a couple of years ago saying that we are running based on a rule called 80-20, where 80% of the attack were external, 20% were from internal. However, if you learn to their pitch nowadays, they still use the